his heart. He worked so hard and he was trying so much, but at some point it's like, okay, I have to make the decision to pay the professionals.
All right, screen is up. Just let me know when you want your audio to go live. I have everyone's audio muted on the stream right now too, so. I'll come in right on the punchline. All right, here we go. You're up. You're on.
Okay, welcome, friends of People for Liberty and Outright Libertarians, and especially members of our LGBT plus for Jo Jorgensen Group on Facebook. We're excited to tune in tonight and talk about the issues that matter most to the LGBTQ and GSM community. My name is Lauren Postler, and I am with People for Liberty. People for Liberty is a 501c4 nonprofit and super PAC dedicated to empowering people to take action in the liberty process and reclaim the freedom promised by our forefathers. We are active on Facebook. We are also streaming to YouTube. And tell you what, we have some great guests here tonight from Outright Libertarians. I'm really excited for them to share their thoughts. But I want to set the stage a little bit for our conversation to come. We know that for the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer people, LGBTQ, who may also identify as gender and sexual minorities, or GSM, and allies like me, the 2020 presidential election is going to be one of the most important elections of our lives. Not the most important, because everyone is important, but certainly this is pivotal when we look at the regulations, the policy, and the legislation affecting our community in particular. Over the last 2 years, the Trump administration has rescinded key protections for transgender students, appointed 2 new anti-equality justices to the U.S. Supreme Court, banned transgender troops from serving openly in the military, and that affects me and my veteran community, and repeatedly pushed policies that would open the doors to discrimination against GSM people in healthcare, housing, public accommodations, and other aspects of life under the guise of religious liberty. So this election, and that's the federal election, is going to set the tone for policies that roll out to come. We know that the Supreme Court nominations are certainly top of everyone's mind as well. And over the past several election cycles, LGBTQ people and allies have been exerting more and more political power, dramatically altering the political landscape. Today, there are 11 million LGBTQ voters estimated nationwide, and that does not even include the 57 million equality voters, or voters who identified as friends, family members, and other allies who prioritize GSM community issues and inclusive policies. Now, we're talking about a significant section of the population. 68 million voters care about the issues we're going to discuss today. We hope that includes you. We hope that this is an opportunity for us to talk openly and honestly about what this election cycle means, and specifically where the Liberty Movement plays a key role. So again, I am excited to introduce a few of our friends from Outright Libertarians. Miss Ashley Shade, Mr. Patrick Bowersox, and Mr. Chase Oliver will be joining us. So let's see. Let's go first to Miss Ashley Shade, who's serving as chair of Outright Libertarians. Ashley's going to tell us a little bit about herself, and then we'll move on to Chase and then Patrick. So Ashley.
Yes, and first, thank you so much for hosting us and having this discussion, this panel this evening. It's always a pleasure to talk to you and to be a part of this and really have the opportunity to speak to the people. So my name is Ashley Shade. I am the chairwoman of Outright Libertarians. Outright Libertarians is also a 503c4 nonprofit organization. And our mission, our goal as an organization is to be the bridge between the GSM or LGBTQ community and the Libertarian Party. So we want to be the bridge that brings people in from immunity, that shows them that libertarianism is the way, that liberty is truly the way for the GSM community, that we've always had a home here, and that the community belongs here with natural allies who want to fight for them. I am a transgender woman, so the issues that we speak about tonight that you've just mentioned are personal to me. They're very important to me. And I am here to help, have that discussion and help people understand why the liberty movement, why libertarians are the best bet for the future if you're looking to have equality in your lifetime, if you're looking to truly have an equal footing in society. We are the ones that you want to come to. We're the ones that want to help you, and we can show you how to do that.
I love it. Thank you, Ashley. Great to join you again on the screen. All right, Chase, my friend, we would love to hear from you.
So hi, my name is Chase Oliver. I'm the fundraising director of Outright Libertarians. But in addition to that, Ashley just described our organization wonderfully about the mission that we have about building bridges between the GSM community and the Libertarian Party. In that effort, I have become a member of the party. I'm a lifetime member of the National Party. I am an affiliate chair of the Libertarian Party of Atlanta. So I do work locally within the Metro Atlanta area to spread the message of liberty. And I also I had the privilege of, until just recently, being one of the first two GSM candidates for Congress in the 5th District here in Georgia, which is a cradle of the GSM community here in the Southeast. I like to think of it as like one of the, one of the blue, they say it's a blue island in a red sea out here of social progression. So, I like the fact that we finally got GSM candidates on the ballot for Congress to represent this district, which is so GSM influenced and heavy. I've also been an activist for GSM issues for nearly my entire adult life. And even when I was a kid, a teenager, I started the GSA, the Gay Straight Alliance, in my high school. I have been an advocate for GSM issues, even back when I was a Democrat. But really, it's actually GSM issues that brought me to becoming a libertarian, because I became a libertarian after 2008. I was politically homeless and as an anti-war voter, and I happened to see the Libertarian Party of Georgia at the Atlanta Pride Festival. It's actually one of their outreach efforts that yield the best results, and that is because I do believe the GSM community is a community that's looking for liberty, that's looking for freedom, and that's looking to free to be themselves. And so that's one of the things I've always advocated for. And one thing I did want to mention, you talked about some of the issues involved in the Trump administration that have been troublesome for GSM people. The United States Census is going out in 2020. And unfortunately, thanks to Donald Trump and his administration, unlike in 2010 census, there is not a question as to if you are a GSM person or a GSM household on the census. So while there's an estimated 11 million GSM voters, we really won't know how many in our community there are. thanks to the government basically limiting people's ability to self-identify as GSM on the census. And that's very important. So that's one thing I just wanted to bring up during this introduction, but I wanted to say thank you for having us on. And I look forward to talking about the issues and help spreading the message of liberty in the GSM community.
Awesome. And thanks so much for bringing that up, Chase. I think that that's a very important fact for people to consider when we talk about how we're counted and how our voices are being heard. You know, the title of our event tonight is Let Us Speak. And we feel strongly that through acts of voter suppression and other tactics, both sides of the aisle employ. I want to be clear, we're not just here hating on Trump. You know, we see that both sides of the aisle in the duopoly, that neither sides have been true friends to the GSM community. So I appreciate you bringing that up. And we'd love to go to you, Patrick. I think that you might still be driving, so I'm sorry.
No, I'm still riding. Unfortunately, traffic in Raleigh has not been cooperative to me, but it never is. So that's okay.
Well, when you're able to be on screen, we'll bring up your video. But for now, if you can give us, you know, high-level introduction, tell us about Patrick, and then when you're able to join us on screen safely, we'll do so.
Absolutely. I'm Patrick Bowersox. I am the vice chair of Outright. I'm also involved. I'm the North Carolina campaign coordinator for Jorgensen Cohen as well. And I'm also involved locally with the Wake County Libertarian Party. We have over 1,000 registered libertarians just in Wake County alone. We are the most active county in North Carolina. And I've been working with the GSM community since I joined the Libertarian Party back in 2014. I actually, strangely enough, I came from the right, which is very interesting to a lot of people from the GSM community. I came from the right, but I grew up in Connecticut. So I grew up with Republicans that are frankly better than Southern Democrats on GSM issues. And I always say this at meetings. I said, I would take a New England Republican over a Southern Democrat any day of the week.
I love it. Well, and that means that you're bringing a diverse perspective as well. So we're excited to have.
Basically, what my wake-up moment was when I moved to North Carolina, and you know, the Republicans I were used to were guys like Christopher Shays and people like Jody Rell, and you know, I could go on and on and on and name a lot of pro GSM Republicans that I grew up with in Connecticut. I came down here and the and I knew I wasn't a Democrat, but the Republicans were just like, oh my God, you people are batshit crazy.
I love it. Well, Patrick, let us know when you can safely be on screen and we'll bring you up. And, you know, in the meantime, we can move into our first question now that people know a little bit about Ashley, Patrick, and Chase. You know, I want to get right into it. We're going to have a real and honest discussion tonight. You might hear some people cursing, and I'm okay with that. So if you are in a place where your children can hear and you might be offended, maybe want to rethink that audience. But, you know, Ashley, broadly, we're going to look at some of the issues and then we'll get down into particulars. But, you know, when we think broadly, you touched on this a little bit. How do you think that the liberty movement supports the GSM community?
Yeah, so the Libertarian Party has been pro-GSM rights since its inception in 1971. It is the first party to support gay marriage, and first party to support the community and actually have that as a foundational piece. For over 50 years, this party has said gay people matter, gay people should be able to be married, it shouldn't be taboo. And with the Libertarian Party, our message is simple. You should be able to do whatever you want as long as you're not hurting somebody else. You should be able to live your life how you choose. You should be able to be who you want to be and live as your true self. And people shouldn't be able to harm you. Whether that's people in your community, whether that's governments, they should not be able to harm you for being who you are and loving who you love. And to me, liberty is the ultimate form of love. To be able to tell someone, you are so important to me that I believe you should have the freedom to live your life and do as you choose as long as you don't hurt other people. That's love. That's an act of conditional love. And as I like to say to some certain people who will bring up the subject of religion, if free will was good enough for God, it should be enough for you. So if God says people should have choices and live their lives how they choose, then that should be good enough for the religious folks as well. And so the Libertarian Party, the Libertarian movement, we value you based on who you are as an individual. And you can live your life the way you want to live. And you should always be true to who you are. And we value and respect that. As long as you're not hurting anybody else, it's perfectly okay. And we want you to be able to live a life of your own choosing, one that's comfortable, one that makes you happy.
I love that, Ashley. And I think it's really succinct, but also very profound, right? That it's simple. This isn't a complex ideology, but it's one that we feel is absolutely core to who we are as humans, which comes first before we identify with a political party. We put our human nature first.
Exactly. And people who talk about, well, first, even the founders knew that we should have liberty and pursuit of happiness. So we should have an inherent right to live, to have liberty and freedom to choose, and pursue our own happiness, as long as we're not hurting other people, right? And so this is not a new concept. This has been around for generations. They didn't quite practice it back then, but it's time for us to practice it now. And the Libertarian Party has always been about allowing people to live, allowing people to have that liberty to choose, and be themselves and pursue their own happiness. And it's something that is so special. You don't see that in many parties. Most of these other parties that pursue GSM issues are doing so to pander to vote. They don't actually care about those issues. They just say, well, you know what? We need that voter block so we can win. And if we don't win, the other people are so much worse that you're going to suffer. That's strategy. Their whole argument isn't that we have great candidates. We have great people that want to fight for you, that they want to fight for your rights. Their whole argument is the other people are so much worse. You have to vote for us, otherwise things will be worse for you. And that's just not, that's just complete bullshit, essentially, is what it is. It's garbage. And we cannot continue to live in a system and continue to elect officials based on who's going to be the worst. We need to put people who actually care, who actually want us to succeed and live our lives.
Absolutely. And Chase, from your perspective, my friend, how does the Liberty Movement support the GSM community?
So as Ashley said, the Libertarian Party has been pro-GSM since our founding. And I like to remind people that, we were founded in the early 70s, and the modern GSM rights movement really got sparked off by the Stonewall riots, which if you really want to boil it down, what is the Stonewall riots? It is people taking action against an oppressive government. That's what Stonewall was. And that's what fueled the liberation movement that happened out of that. So every time we march in a gay pride parade, what we are marching in celebration of is people taking their liberty and their rights back from government in a way that we had never seen before. And so the liberty movement is in lockstep with that spirit of free expression. The Libertarian Party is the party of free expression. You are free to be who you want to be, live how you want to live, so long as you don't hurt people or take other people's things, take from other people. So as long as you're giving and expressing out into the world, you can do whatever you want. And that's something that is unique to the Libertarian Party. Other things that I like to tell people is government is not going, if we just look to government to solve the problems out there, that's not going to happen. Government will not end homophobia. Government's not going to end racism and other things either. That's culture. That's people that are going to do that. And you have to look beyond the government structures and actually start speaking directly to people. And that's something the Liberty Movement does as well. We don't look for the government to solve our problems. We look to band together as free individuals to combat the problems that exist in the world. And I will say this, there are pro-gay people in other parties. They exist, and I'm sure they're very accepting and loving of LGBT GSM people. But the truth is I vote for libertarians as a GSM person, not just because they support GSM equality and GSM liberty, but also because they don't support sending GSM people to wars to die overseas, because they don't support raising taxes on GSM families to pay for programs that have been total failures. They actively support GSM people, not just for our rights and our liberty, which they have been supporting since the 70s, but they also advocate for a freer life for everyone, including GSM people, and not excluding GSM people like so many politicians have done throughout the decades. So I'm proud to stand with the Libertarian Party and the Liberty Movement because they've been standing with us. They have not waited until it was politically expedient to support our marriage rights or to support our right to adopt children or any other rights that we have. They didn't wait till it was politically expedient to say, don't ask, don't tell is BS and it doesn't need to exist. So, I like to remind people that even if we're not winning elections, what we are doing is we're changing the nature of the conversation. Before a river comes, there has to be the stream. And that's what the Liberty Movement is. We're carving the path so the mainstream can follow us, learn from us. And if the old parties want to continue existing, they're going to have to keep stealing our good ideas and doing that. And I'm happy to give them the good ideas that they're going to have to steal from us. But in the meantime, I'm going to advocate for us, which is a ticket that is wholeheartedly supporting of liberty for every person. And that's really where I feel like the Liberty Movement is pushing for GSM rights, right there at the forefront, ahead of the mainstream. That's where we've always been.
I love it. And now I'm feeling all fired up too. Ashley, you and Chase are speaking to my heart. And I know you're really speaking to the heart of our viewers as well on the People for Liberty Facebook page, on our YouTube channel, where I hope people are subscribing so you can continue to follow the conversation and our future conversations starting next week with other groups. I think Patrick accidentally dropped off. We might have to wait for him to come back on. Let me double check. So in the meantime, Ashley and Chase, let's get a little bit more specific. Let's talk about where and how can libertarian candidates support legislation and policies that impact the GSM community. We've talked broadly about the Liberty Movement. Now let's talk about some actual legislation and policies and the libertarian stance that impacts the GSM community specifically. So Ashley, I'm going to kick that first to you, my friend.
Yeah, so the best way a politician can support the community is by speaking up for us, letting us know that they support us. That's really, as Chase said, you can create as many laws as you want to create, but laws are not enough. Laws don't solve the problem. They kick the can down the road. And in some circumstances, laws are necessary. When a marginalized group is being so devastated and attacked, sometimes laws are necessary to prevent them from causing harm. But they're not a final solution, because guess what? Depending on who's in power, those laws can disappear. Yep. And what happens is when you create a new law saying you have to do this, it makes those against push back even harder. And then when those laws get repealed, they get more radicalized. They get more drawn into their own hatred of the community because they feel like they were for it. So what we need to do is have those difficult conversations with people. We need to be able to educate people. We need to talk about what it's like to be a GSM person living in America, living in the world. We need to talk about our struggles and rehumanize the GSM community. It's easy to hate people when you dehumanize them. And for centuries, that's what's happened with minorities, with marginalized communities, with the GSM community. We've been dehumanized and desensitized so people can learn to hate us. Hatred is a learned behavior. You do not get born hating people. You don't get born and hate anyone or anything. It's a learned behavior. And so what we have to do is tell our story, speak out, work with people, educate them, be willing to have difficult conversations, but be also willing to listen and understand that not everybody's going to be there right away. Not everybody's going to get it right away. But we can have these conversations, and eventually we change the society. We go from having 10% support for gay marriage to now probably 70 or 80% in society. So it's having these conversations, getting people to understand this isn't anything of you. This is not personal. We're not trying to harm you. We're just trying to live our lives. And this is what we've experienced just because of who we are as people. And nobody should have to go through these experiences just for living, just for being who they are. As a transgender woman, I should not receive death threats that I do every now and then online for just being trans and speaking out. I should not have to fear for my safety. And I'm very lucky. I'm a very large woman. I'm 6'2", and I don't fear for my safety. But many of my brothers and sisters are absolutely afraid. Many of my trans sisters, so many have been murdered this year. This year, 2020, is the highest record on record in the United States for transgender murders. And we're in the middle of a pandemic where people self-isolating, and yet we're seeing these record highs. Why? Because people are radicalized. They've learned to hate us, and we have to be the ones that say, no, don't hate us. We love you. We love people. We just want to be ourselves. And as we reintroduce ourselves to people, as we have those conversations and educate people and teach them love and respect, to be honest with you, GSM issues are not political, and they should never should. It's a human dignity issue. That's what it is. It's a human dignity issue. Same thing with racial issues. These are not political. They are human dignity issues. We should be treating everybody with dignity and respect, and we should not be harming them because they look different, because they pray different, because they love different. We're all human beings. We all want to live. We all bleed. We all die. We all want to provide for our families. We all want to be able to work. We all want to be able to love. These are normal human conditions, and we need to understand and teach each other that we are all human beings at the end of the day. And the human race can evolve and could do so much more if we all came together and stopped the pettiness over our differences and learned to just love each other for who we are.
I love that, Ashley. And I do want to touch on this because I appreciate you bringing it up. You know, you mentioned that sometimes laws are necessary. Sometimes laws are necessary to overcome and to prevent harm. And I think that's where I get a lot of pushback from people that think, oh, libertarian is anarchy and you guys don't want any laws. Well, then how are you going to protect, you know, the GSM community or Black, Indigenous, and persons of color? And how are you going to make sure that there are protections and we are fighting for equality? So before we move on to Chase, you know, Ashley, from your perspective, you said sometimes laws are necessary. Sometimes policy and local regulations are necessary. So can you think of an instance where, as libertarians, we absolutely support that laws and policy and regulation may sometimes be necessary?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll give you an example that just happened over the summer. The Supreme Court ruled that employers cannot discriminate against gay or transgender employees. And to be honest with you, this is a long time ago, right? We should have access to the market. The market should not discriminate. Governments should never be allowed to discriminate. Governments are supposed to represent all of the people that they in their community. So whether it's local, state, federal, your government represents you, and they should not be able to cause you harm by discriminating against you. Ever. The government should never discriminate. And people might argue about private discrimination. Is it okay? Is it not? Will the market settle it? Will it not? Well, sometimes a group of people are so profoundly hurt by it that they can't even function in the society. And we should all have access to the society. We should all be able to go to work and make a living to support ourselves and our families. We should all have access to adequate housing. We should not be denied the housing if we can pay for it, right? Mm-hmm. If we have the funds to go pay for the housing, why are you telling me that I shouldn't be able to live there? It's ridiculous. It's not a free market when you do that. And if we truly want a free market means that everybody has a chance to participate. Now, it doesn't mean that everybody's going to be equal in the market. That's really not possible. But everybody should have access to be able to participate in that market. People should be able to make a living. People should be able to go get health care. There are still instances in many states that now have religious laws that allow medical providers to discriminate against GSM people and say, I'm not going to treat you based on religious reasons. And that's harmful. That's literally, somebody could die from that kind of thing, especially in rural areas where access is limited. And so if your main provider in a rural area where there's no choices is denying you health care and causing you risk and harm for your own life and safety, these are major issues. And we're not okay with that. We are never okay with causing harm to people. We are philosophy of don't hurt people and don't take their stuff. And discrimination hurts people. It is not okay. So we have to fight for, society to change. And of course, there are inherent biases. And again, this is all educational. As the society grows, as we get more and more people on our side, and it goes from 10% to 20% to 30%, once we finally have 50%, once we have a majority of allies speaking up on our behalf, the society is going to be much better for that. That's what we have to get to. That's how we make the real change, by getting the majority of the people participating in the society to say, no, you can't do that. You can't hurt those people just because they're different. That's where we need to get to when it comes to GSM issues, when it comes to race issues in this country and inequality. This is what we have to do. We have to stand up for everybody. We can't just be a party that says, well, I'm free and my liberty's great, so good luck. We have to be in it together. We have to take care of all of us. Yes. And that's what it's really all about. We have to be in it together for all of our rights, all of the time, so everybody can have that liberty and freedom, live and be who they are.
Yes, and I appreciate the eloquence. And also, again, bringing it back to simple concepts. Don't hurt people, don't take their stuff. And where legislation and rules and regulations have a role in that we as libertarians recognize, is preventing harm and ensuring equal access to free markets, equal access to opportunity. So absolutely, Ashley. Chase, let's talk about your thoughts on specific legislation, policies, and regulation, and how libertarian candidates play a role.
I was a libertarian candidate, so I've been answering questions about these kinds of things quite a bit. But I wanted to talk about things like, we libertarians, we believe that society has been over-criminalized and also over-legislated. And oftentimes, it is the most marginalized communities that bear the brunt of that, namely the poor, communities of color, oftentimes the GSM community. And I think about things like, when we have so many laws in the books for victimless crimes, things like the drug war that we fight, what does that do? That takes the eye off the ball of the legitimate issues that are out there. Things like violence against our trans community and then the rest of the GSM community. There's only so many dollars and there's only so much time for law enforcement to investigate and to do the job they're supposed to be doing, which is actually serving and protecting the public. And if we are spending so much of our time and so much of our money in throwing people who are nonviolent drug users or sex workers in jail who are practicing consenting behavior where no one is being harmed, what you're doing is you're taking away the focus and the effort on combating legitimate harm that's being done to people. If we want to combat the trans murder epidemic, then let's start putting our focus there. That's what we're asking to do, is we're saying, let's start focusing on the legitimate violent crimes that are going on in our society and stop focusing on things that are not affecting people, that are not negatively harming people through violence or through theft, extortion, what have you. So one of the things that as a libertarian candidate I advocated for is actually doing away with many laws and regulations that actually make it harder for people to live free and equal in their liberty. There are also things like housing discrimination is something that Ashley brought up. The Trump administration, they brought up rules this past year that they sent out to all of the government housing for homeless shelters for women, basically showing how to identify trans women so that you can push them out of the shelters because, in the eyes of government, I guess, trans women don't deserve to have homeless care. I don't understand what that's all about. But the truth is, and then you have other people on the other side of the aisle who for years, when they were in charge of prisons in their state, they were advocating putting trans women into prison with men because they didn't take the time to understand trans issues. They didn't take the time to listen to trans people and understand what was going on. That is something that people who are elected to legislate and to execute laws, they need to do more of. And that is why I think that one of the reasons why I support third party, independent of all kinds, not just the Libertarian Party, is that we need a political body and a political discourse that is as diverse as the people that they are representing. And the way you do that, the way you get that diversity of races, of sexual orientations, gender expressions, and religions, is you accept diversity of thought. And that is something that, again, we as a party have been advocating for and fighting for since our very beginning, because we know that when you have more options on the table, you can pick the best ones. It's literal free market competition in place. And that's why we advocate for so many things that go outside of government-only solutions. Because if there was a government-only solution, say for healthcare, for instance, say we had single-payer healthcare in this country, and someone who is a virulent homophobe becomes the president, or a transphobe becomes the president of the United States. That's happened before. We're living in it right now, right? Well, what if they said, you know what? We're not going to offer care for trans people because we don't believe that they deserve those rights. Well, guess what? Government is the only option in that case. And now government has denied an entire group of people. So that is why we advocate for so many things that are beyond just government only, because we know at any time government can be put into the hand of tyrants. So that's why we seek to limit the power of government and to increase the power of each and every individual. Our vice presidential candidate, Spike Cohen, is fond of saying, you are the power. And that's true. Each and every person who's listening to this right now, each and every person out there in the world, you are the power. You have the ability to take that power away from government and demand that government not be the only solution to problems. And that's why, as a candidate, I advocated for it. And that's why, and Ashley is right. Sometimes there is legislation that is needed to kind of fill in the gap while society catches up. To that end, I grew up, I'm here in Georgia. My parents grew up in the Jim Crow South. They lived through segregation. I'm one generation literally removed from living through segregation. And it was through legislation that got the ball rolling, that has started, as imperfect as our world is with regard to race relations in this nation right now, what we do have is a framework to work off of. And that was thanks to the Civil Rights Act. Do I think GSM people should be added to the Civil Rights Act? You betcha. 100%, I think we should have GSM people being represented by the Civil Rights Act. Because as long as there is discrimination out there, you're right, that's preventing entryway into the marketplace. And we need to combat that. And that's something that is not agreed upon by all libertarians by no means. I don't want to speak for every libertarian. I'm speaking for this libertarian. And, I think as a candidate, that is what I advocated for. More choices and more voices. That's what we need, a more diverse political discourse. When we have that, we're going to have a better world for not just GSM people, but for everyone.
Chase, I cannot wait until you're in Congress, my friend.
Well, I didn't win my race, but
Next
2022
time.
is around the corner, and
Yep.
God knows what I'll be running for then.
Next time. I think we have Patrick who's been able to come back to us. Patrick, are you with
Yeah.
us?
Yes, I'm here. In
Excellent.
live and in color too.
Well, so Patrick, I think that both Ashley and Chase had very eloquent and impassioned responses to some of our early questions. So I'm going to kind of combine that in one question for you. Tell me why, or tell us, our wonderful viewers, why you think the libertarian movement and libertarian policies support the GSM community.
Well, I mean, there's no doubt about it. The Libertarian Party has supported equality in marriage and equality in marriage since 1971, and we're the only party that it's actually part of our platform. I mean, the Democrats like to take credit for it, but they didn't do it. The Supreme Court did it. The Democrats like to sit back and take credit. Now, if you want, I'll give them credit. I'll give Obama credit for not stopping the progress of it, but he didn't do it. But the Democrats like to take this as their issue, and the Supreme Court did it, mind you, with mainly conservative judges. Conservative judges had to vote for this too. So, I mean,
you're right. And Patrick, tell us from your perspective, what is unique about either the libertarian principles or the liberty movement that stands out for the GSM community? What's unique about libertarians? What's unique about the liberty movement that supports the community?
Well, to me, it's always, we want to be treated the same as everybody else. That's what we want. I don't want to be put on a pedestal. I mean, I want you to support me and be my friend because of who I am. You know what? But if you're making me if you're tallying up and you want to be friends with me and Ashley and Chase just because we're members of this community, then your heart's in the wrong place. You need to be friends for us for who we are, what we do, the activism we do. And I'm telling you, that's the biggest reason why I wanted no part of the Democratic Party. It's just identity politics. And the Republicans is just like picking on the nerd with the bloody nose. I mean, it's just too easy.
I hear you, Patrick.
I hate to say that, but.
So let's.
And that's why I mainly go after the Democrats when I go to these meetings. I was at an LGBTQ meeting in Raleigh one time, and I had someone from the Democratic Party, and Democrats in North Carolina legislated marriage between a man and a woman. The Democratic Party did that. And I legitimately asked everybody at the table, I'm like, okay, could you tell me what the Democratic Party has done since 1995 in the state of North Carolina to reverse that? What have they done? Legislation, anything. Couldn't come up with a thing. And I had someone come up to me and go, we just weren't ready to see two guys get married. I was like, wow. Okay, so you got to be kidding me.
Wow. Yeah.
So you're excusing your homophobia, your transphobia. You're excusing it because you said, we just weren't ready for it.
And Patrick, I love that you gave a very concrete example around, legislation, policies, this can be local, it can be state, it can be federal. And we talked with Ashley a little bit about how sometimes laws and regulation are necessary if it's ensuring we do no harm.
Yeah.
And so we like to, promote small government and as little interference from government as possible. But sometimes it's necessary to ensure the government isn't doing harm.
Exactly.
I think that was a wonderful, wonderful concrete example. I appreciate that, especially at the state level. All right. I know this question. This is a question.
Going to work on this. Oh, sure,
this is a question that, Ashley was getting fired up about. We were getting, antsy about this earlier. But it's one that's come up in our group a number of times, and I think that we should address it. And the question was, if Trump is so bad, shouldn't we be voting for Biden? How can votes for libertarian, and let me reframe that. How can votes for libertarian candidates help make a difference for the GSM community if we're not sure they can win? Again, not my question, but I think that it's important that we address it. I think it's important that we take this question head on. So Ashley, I'm going to kick this first to you. And go ahead, cuss up a storm, girl. I hear you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you should not just automatically vote for Biden. You should not vote for the lesser of two evils. Biden has had an entire 40-plus year political career where he could have introduced and supported legislation to help the GSM community, to legalize marriage, to do all of these things that he never did. What did he do instead? He signed the worst crime in U.S. history. He is single-handedly responsible for more marginalized people in prison than any other Democrat, or mainly even Republican, in this country because of the legislation that he supported. His running mate, Kamala Harris, admitted to hiding evidence to prosecute minorities, threw transgender women in jail cells with men where they were beaten, raped, harmed, denied medical care, and she fought all the way through to state Supreme Court saying that it's okay to discriminate against them, deserve to be there. This is your ticket. These people have done more harm to marginalized communities, or just as much harm to marginalized communities as Trump has. And so we don't just vote for people because we think their party will do less harm, right? Maybe their party will do less harm. Maybe. But the history hasn't shown it. They have no actual record of being supportive for our community. Their records are terrible when it comes to actually helping our community. And here's the other thing. You want third parties to be viable in America, you have to start voting for them. As we gain more support, we cannot be viable if you don't vote for us. And we are out here on the front lines every single day, fighting for you, wanting you to say, you deserve a better life. You deserve to make your own decisions. You deserve to live free. And if you believe that, you need to make the conscientious choice not to vote for the lesser of two evils. The reason we have such a crappy system right now, the reason it's so full of shitty people in Congress and in the White House, is because for years we've been voting for the lesser of two evils. We've been using our votes as defense mechanisms rather than voting for people we actually believe in, who actually represent our values, our ideas, and actually want to make a difference in this world. Instead, we vote for someone because it's strategy. We think they'll win. But how many Biden supporters do you know personally? And I know there are many Biden people out there who are voting for Joe Biden in this election. How many of them are actually excited to vote for Joe Biden? How many of them are jumping up and down like, woo, good old Uncle Joe is going to save us? None. None of them are excited to vote for Joe. They wanted him destroyed in the primaries. And guess what? His opponents were right. He's terrible. And so were his opponents. What happens when you keep putting up crappy candidates? We get crappy results. This is what happens. And if you keep voting for the lesser of two evil because you think it's going to save us, it's not going to save us. In the long run, it's prolonging the progress that we should have made 50 years ago. It's taken this long because instead of turning to the option that's been fighting for you all along, you've said, well, they've got more numbers, and I feel safer there. Well, guess what? Feeling safe is good. I get it. But you have to take risk for opportunity to grow. We don't grow inside of our safety shell. We grow when we look outside of it and we see the bigger picture and we fight for that. Opportunity comes when you take risk. Yes, there is risk involved when you take the opportunity to vote for somebody new, vote for somebody different, vote outside of the system. But the results can be tremendous. We need your vote now because we need to show the world, we need to show our country and all these deniers and doubters that we can be a viable alternate. There can be a third party. 80% of Americans want there to be another choice because they're tired of the choices that they have. Well, we're presenting you a choice. And if you take that choice, you're just feeding into the same old system that's not going to do anything for you. Honestly, the two candidates that are running for president are two of the worst presidential candidates in history. This is what we get We deserve it. We deserve it as a country to have two terrible candidates, because for the past 60 years, we've been voting for the lesser of evils. And guess what? We still end up with evil. So you want to stop having evil? There's another choice. Look at liberty candidates. Look at people who want you to be free, who want to fight for your rights, who want you to be who you are all the time. And stop pandering to parties and cozying up with people to kind of feel safe, because, you know, they'll pat you on the back and say, oh, well, you're okay. You're okay. Now, how about somebody who's going to embrace you with arms wide open, give you a big hug, and say, we love you? That's what you want, right? So come to the liberty movement. We're here. We love you for who you are, for who you want to be. And we support you 100%. And that's who I want to represent me on a local, federal, and national level. I want candidates who respect me, who have dignity, who understand that I'm a human being, and that are going to treat me with respect. And these two parties, they don't do that anymore. They pander to your vote, and they say, well, you owe it to us because we can stop the other person from being terrible. Well, they're still both terrible. It's not working. It's time for something else.
And Ashley, I can't wait till I can get a big bear hug from you. Yes. And, you know, I appreciate that you share for our audience what it means to find a movement that cares about you and identify with an ideology that truly fits your values. I think that is so important. And it's what people are searching for, especially at this point in time.
Yes.
You know, I've been having conversations with people about this cultural zeitgeist that we're in. Chase, I'd love to speak to you a little bit about the numbers game, though, and the reality of the situation. You just recently ran as a candidate for Congress. You know how to play this game. And I think that we, again, need to be open and honest here. It is unlikely that we're going to have a third-party candidate for president this election cycle. We understand that. We understand that it's likely there will be a Republican or a Democrat in that seat. We're hopeful that more state and local officials and opportunities for libertarian candidates on the ballot will be considered. Mm-hmm. But, you know, when we think about, again, the numbers, your one vote might not make a difference in Republican versus Democrat. Those are huge pools of numbers. We know we won't make much of a difference there, but where one vote can matter and where we start to see the scales tip, and what can happen this election is if our candidates get 5%.
Well, so I want to go ahead and speak first and foremost. You know, Ashley said that, you know, the Republican and Democratic parties aren't working for the people anymore. They really don't work for the people ever. You know, if you really want to think about it, they're working for big corporate interests and special interests who fund their campaigns, who funnel money to them. That's who they work for. That's who they're working for. So if Trump is so bad, why shouldn't we be voting for Biden, right? Or if Biden, whatever, why shouldn't we vote for Trump? Because the truth is they're both terrible choices. They are a result of this duopoly system that we've allowed to continue and continue because, frankly, we are too afraid or too lazy to change things. That's what's really going on. Either voters are too afraid to step out of the box, to step outside and say, you know what, I'm going to vote for the candidate that actually represents me the most. I'm not going to vote for the candidate that I think is going to win. I'm going to vote for the candidate that I think should win. That's what should be going through voters' heads. But right now, there's this fear of if I don't vote this way, the bad person wins. But the truth is that's the system that you get caught in. So what can we do to break down the duopoly? In the duopoly, allow for more choices and more voices in our political system. How do we break the system that places a binary choice on us? Now, as GSM people, we know binary just ain't the way it goes, baby. That's not what's going on. We need to have more diversity. So the way we do that is first, stop voting for Democrats and Republicans. And I know that's going to be the hardest step for so many people to take right now. So I'm going to move that down for a minute. So let's just table that. The first thing you can do, even if you are voting for Republicans and Democrats, is support ballot access reform. Make it easier for third-party and independent candidates to get on the ballot. You know, I ran in Georgia. The reason I ran in this recent race, which was a special election, is because I didn't have the ballot signature requirements that I needed to have. I just had to pay a filing fee. In any other race in Georgia, there's a huge ballot access hurdle in terms of signatures that would need to require to get to run for office. In fact, in Georgia, I just have this on the top of my head because it's where I live, 60% of the state legislature races, both Senate and House, run, and they represent 80% of the population, run unopposed every November. It's one party on the ballot. And that's because districts have been gerrymandered to the point of where there are safe red and safe blue districts. There's very few competitive seats. And that's the way the two parties like it. They like doing that. So the way you combat that is you support ballot access to allow for an independent to challenge in that blue district, for a green to challenge in the blue district, for a constitution or libertarian to challenge in the red district or the blue district, to create more competition. The second thing you do, support ranked choice voting. It's what they have in Maine. There are a couple states right now that have it on the ballot this November. If you live in one of those states, get out and support ranked choice voting, because that takes that fear aspect away from the voter. They can feel comfortable knowing that they're voting for their first choice. And if their first choice isn't electorally viable, then their second choice, not the bad person, will get their vote. You're not stealing a vote in that case. We have something similar in Georgia, the runoff system, but we really need ranked choice voting so we have an instant runoff, so we don't have that voter apathy of people getting out the second time around to vote. Third, again, stop voting for Republicans or Democrats. If you want to change the system, if 80% of Americans really want a third party, they need to get out and start voting for a third party. That's the only way they're going to grow. That's the only way they're going to get more notice. It's the only way they're going to get that spot on the debate stage and other areas, is if you get out and vote for them and you vocally support them. And then fourth, and this is the most important step, never give up. If you're a third party person, if you're somebody who's fighting to break down the duopoly, do not give up. This is a marathon, not a sprint. It's not going to end in 2020 or 2022. It's going to take a lot of time. We did not just take one step towards tyranny. It was a lot of small steps, and it's going to take a lot of small steps to pull us back from that ledge and to get away from the duopoly choices. So if I would say to anybody, don't vote for Republicans or Democrats, fight for ballot access reforms, support ranked choice voting, and never give up. You will one day be the side that wins, not just the side that should win. And that's the message that I give to everyone is I'm not going to sacrifice my voice, my opinion, my worldview, so that someone who doesn't care about my voice, my opinion, my worldview can sit in a position of power and then not do anything for me. What does that get me? That gets me bupkis. And that's the truth, is that's where you're getting when you vote for the duopoly parties. You're voting for people who already are comfortable with the fact that they're bought and paid for by the giant corporate and military industrial complex, prison industrial complex interests. They give a whole lot of more care about their voices than yours. And the only way you're going to take the power back is if you take the power back. You are the power. Take it back. And that's the message we have to be sending to people, is the only way to break down the duopoly is to do it. And you mentioned 5%. 5% gets us ballot access in many states. It allows if we were to take it, it allows us the option of federal matching funds. I don't see many libertarians taking that route because philosophically it's opposite of where we're at. But what it does is it gives us major party status in many states. It makes it easier for us to overcome those ballot access hurdles because many of them disappear when we get that 5% or more. So get out and vote, because right now, if you live in a traditionally blue state that is not going to be going anything but blue, then the vote for Donald Trump is a truly wasted vote, because it's not helping us get that 5%. It's not helping broaden the electorate, to broaden the discourse. And all it's doing is it's kind of a virtue signal. That's what it really is. And same if you live in a red state. If you live in deep red Mississippi, if you really think Biden is the best candidate for you, by all means, go out and vote for him. But if you think that that's going to change anything, well, what you really need to be doing is looking to your third party and independent candidates and voting for them. And then lastly, I want to say, this isn't just about the presidency. There's down ballot tickets all over this country that are very important. Donald Rainwater in Indiana, that guy is actually leading in the polls for governor right now. Ricky Harrington for Senate in Arkansas against arguably one of the worst candidates for GSM issues, Tom Cotton, out there. That man is making waves and getting noticed because he's actually doing the hard work, and he's the only candidate on the ballot against him. So and then there are people like, I can name Tom Queter in New York. There are so many people all over the country who are pro-GSM Liberty candidates who need your help beyond just the president and vice president. But that being said, there's a third choice on the ballot for every single American who is tired of the two-party system, and that's Jo Jorgensen and Spike Cohen. And I've had the pleasure of getting to meet and speak with both of them. And I know that they are the candidate who is the best ticket for the GSM community. The two of them combined are a great team that would help the GSM community if elected. And even if they don't win this election, vote for them so that we can send a message that we need more candidates like them. More candidates, in particular, Spike Cohen, who's a millennial. I want people who are in my generation to start stepping up and taking the reins and getting the votes, because that's how we're going to really move ourselves forward. We're never going to move ourselves forward if we keep voting for candidates from the past.
Absolutely. Amen. Amen, Chase. Thank you so much for that. We just have a couple minutes. So Patrick, I would love your thoughts on this as well. What can voters do to make a change? What can people who want to support GSM issues do at the ballot this cycle?
Well, the ballot, what we can do at the ballot, I'm going to break this down for a solution. We need to run libertarian candidates for offices, state senate, city, town council, whatever. We need to run libertarians and present that libertarian option for voters. It's not just about national. It's about local. It's about state. It's about everything, man. You got to go for it all. I mean, we have 17 candidates in North Carolina, 17 running for state house and state senate. And we've got a gubernatorial candidate and a U.S. Senate and a U.S. Congress candidate as well. Yep. So you got to run. And we actually had a libertarian win office in Carthage, North Carolina.
Yeah.
So he's a town commissioner. So we have to run, and when you see those libertarians on the ballot, vote for them. They're gonna bring you liberty options. They're gonna bring you freedom. They're gonna bring all these things that Republicans and Democrats like to tout about but don't deliver on.
I love that, Patrick, and I think that was a great way to kind of wrap up our conversation tonight. That we have to run too. So in addition to voting at the ballot this election cycle, think about the next election. Think about if you are passionate about representing freedom, and consider running as a candidate. The libertarian movement wants you. If you support all of your freedom all of the time, we want you. We want to support your opportunities. We want to support you for office. We want you to get involved. Patrick, wonderful way to kind of bring us back center. And Ashley, I'd love to bring it back to you to talk about how can people get involved with Outright Libertarians?
Absolutely. And I was going to wait until after the election, but since Patrick brought it up, since you just spoke so well about this, I am going to personally be running for city council in my home city of North Adams, Massachusetts next year. So I hope others will also get involved. Run for office, get involved. I currently work for 6 different libertarian campaigns that are happening right now. So get involved, be involved. But how can you get involved with Outright Libertarians? We want you to come join us. Join us at outrightusa.org. That is our website. We have some fabulous going on right now. We are building affiliates. We are building our outreach. We have 3 specific committees that we're looking for people to join. Fundraising, outreach, and policy. So if you're interested in helping make a difference in those areas, if you want to see the Outright message grow, if you want to help us work on policy and information that help our candidates, our states, our platforms, if that interests you, come join us. We'd love to have you. And if you're great at raising money, we'd love to have you on the fundraising team as well. We've got a lot of special projects and ideas coming along, including right now, go on our site and vote. We are having a drag calendar contest. So the top 12 people you pick with your money, vote with your dollars. The top 12 people will be featured in the first ever Libertarian drag calendar. And part of the money will be raised, will go towards Outright, will go back to your affiliate of the person who is in the contest. And when we sell the calendars, a portion will go to a GM charity. So we are working to improve the community with mutual aid by showing that we're willing to work with other organizations as well. We want you to be a part of this. Come join us out. We love you. Last night we had our open monthly meeting. We have one meeting the third Tuesday of every month that is open to the public. We'd love to have you come in, join us, have ideas. You can contact me directly and go on our website and join. And for just $30 annually, if you sign up today or any day, you can get one of these beautiful Gayston flags that you see behind me sent to you as part of your membership. So if you like the flag, our beautiful Gayston, we'd love to send you one. Sign up today, join us. We also have a free membership, so if you can't pay now, join us anyway. We'd love to have you as part of us. Message me anytime. I'm always happy to talk to all of you.
Yes, I love it so much. Patrick, Ashley, thank you so much for joining us. We're looking forward to a recap after the election with you all, doing a post-mortem and talking about what did the results of the election mean for the GSM community. So for all of our viewers watching tonight, we hope that you'll stay tuned. We'll post that event announcement soon. And for those of you interested in some of our activities at People for Liberty, we were very proud to support the Let Her Speak movement, led by a fabulous group of grassroots volunteers and activists. And moving into the midterms after this election cycle, we will be transitioning that campaign to focus on Let Us Speak. And we're really going to tackle some of those, tactics that Chase mentioned that have to do with voter repression, including ballot access and other tactics where we need to make sure we're bringing more diverse voices to the table. So find out more about Let Her Speak, which launched this election cycle specifically in support of Dr. Jo Jorgensen, Libertarian for President, but also consider how you can be a part of Let Us Speak moving forward. You can find out more about those campaigns at let-us-speak.com. And for more about People for Liberty, again, our 501c4 and Super PAC, you can visit people4liberty.org. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Please subscribe to our channel on YouTube. We'll be posting the event recap there and clips from this conversation and others. And we're looking forward to more live streaming events next week with members from our Women Voters for Jo Jorgensen Group, our Black Voters for Jo Jorgensen Group, military voters. So among our 16 different peer groups, we're going to be speaking to members from each of those groups. So thank you again to Ashley, Chase, and Patrick, and the Outright Libertarians. We love you all of your freedoms, all of the time. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Peace, love, and liberty.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're clear. Yes, no problem. I think it should be up there.